the idea that you could label those who are opposed to and have kind of resisted Trump's deportation campaigns, or even targeted conservatives or conservative agendas aggressively, as domestic terrorists. So there will almost certainly be really, really significant consequences of this.
Now, every Tuesday we head to the US to find out what's happening in Washington, and Lara Spirit is our woman star jumping in the land of the stars and stripes, and she joins me now. Hello, Lara.
Hi, Hugo. How are you?
I'm good. Good to speak to you as always. So, look, Donald Trump is arriving in the UK today for the start of his state visit. The whole occasion threatens to be overshadowed by the scandal over Peter Mandelson. Explain to us, Lara, the dynamic here. Donald Trump quite liked Peter Mandelson, didn't he?
Yes, Trump quite liked Mandelson. I mean, indeed, it was on the week that Mandelson was sacked that he was present in the White House for some discussions with Trump and the Scottish leaders. So clearly there was a relationship of sorts there. And famously, of course, Keir Starmer very grateful to the work that Peter Mandelson did on securing a UK-US trade deal. And that was seen as the kind of apex of Peter Mandelson's diplomatic career here in Washington. So there has been seen to have a kind of good rapport between the two men, though it's not clear by any stretch, and nor has it been clear since Peter Mandelson be sacked that Donald Trump is personally unhappy or aggrieved about this. We haven't heard anything to that effect yet, so that will be interesting to see whether that comes up in the state visit. And then the second thing, of course, that people who hope this event might go smoothly could be worried about is, of course, that idea that because Trump has his own question of links to Epstein, that has been a sensitive issue here in DC, particularly in the earlier part of the summer, that might therefore cause some awkwardness for the White House over the course of the state visit. But I think that the two questions over those links of Epstein are so qualitatively different, and the contents of the email are so striking compared to what some have been concerned about Trump about. I mean, just markedly different, of a different standard completely, that I think there's not necessarily a huge amount perhaps to be concerned about. But I think you'll just have to see over the next couple of days whether or not that's something that's teased out of Trump or not.
So, I mean, that's what they might have to talk about. What do they want to be talking about? What are the important things on the table?
Well, I mean, of course, the state visit is a good opportunity to make sure that what has been achieved in the UK-US trade deal to try and keep tariffs below that which has affected many, many countries around the world are maintained. It is a really good opportunity for Trump to be feted by those in Westminster and, of course, in the UK. I mean, he holds a real affection and love for the royal family. He has said so many times. And so it will be seen as a good opportunity for them to talk and to make sure that those relations stay positive. I mean, one of the interesting flashpoints that you could see is around this question of energy, and particularly offshore wind. It's been interesting recently that Trump has actually mentioned the UK when it comes to offshore wind. It is something that he completely despises, and he's been revoking licenses and contracts here as well to that effect. So that will be potentially something that's very interesting over the next couple of days. And there are a number of other issues that could just come out of nowhere.
I mean, the importance of the royal family, as you mentioned, we've heard this morning that the Queen has cancelled one engagement because she has sinusitis. He's going to be pretty disappointed if he doesn't get to hang out with the King and Queen, isn't he?
He is going to be pretty disappointed by that, certainly. And I mean, that will have been one of the main things that was in Number 10's mind when they offered him famously in the Oval Office that unprecedented second visit, because they know how much respect and adoration he holds for them. But even so, they'll be hoping that the pomp and the ceremony that will still stand will do a lot to make sure that Trump is happy on this visit.
Let's turn to the death of Charlie Kirk, which is still dominating the news in the United States. We're beginning to learn a bit more about the suspect who's accused of having shot the podcaster and YouTuber. What do we know, Lara?
Yeah, so it's a very big day here in Washington on this Kirk question, because the suspect, Taylor Robinson, the 22-year-old, is going to have formal charges filed against him by the county attorney in Utah. And we'll also have a press conference this afternoon alongside Spencer Cox, the Republican governor in the state, where we'll likely hear some more details. And actually, Kash Patel, the somewhat embattled FBI director, who, of course, said that there was a suspect famously at a very sensitive moment in the investigation in custody, and actually that didn't turn out to be the suspect. So he's faced some criticism here. He's been doing a number of broadcast interviews, particularly on Fox News since, and it's possible that he could release some further information today as well. We'll have to see. On Robinson now, one thing Patel seemed to do was to all but confirm a story in the Washington Post yesterday that Robinson had confessed on the Discord messaging chat shortly before turning himself into doing this killing in like message exchanges. So to people that had been discussing this killing for the previous hours after it had taken place. So that is a seeming confession. We'll obviously hear a lot more about that today, and it's a very fast-moving story here in the US.
I mean, there's obviously been some discussion in the UK about why this is such big news over here, given that he wasn't sort of so well known, at least among, people older than teenagers. But it's almost impossible to overstate how big a deal it is in the United States. Why is this story so huge there, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, we heard yesterday from JD Vance, who hosted a special edition of the Charlie Kirk Show, the podcast that the conservative influencer famously presented. And he hosted this edition. He had a number of very senior Trump administration officials who were coming onto the podcast, people like Susie Wiles, the White House chief of staff, like Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Health Secretary Stephen Miller, the kind of border czar who's in charge of Trump's sweeping immigration agenda, all of whom came on and actually paid testament to the influence and the power that Charlie Kirk had in this administration. And they gave a number of examples. I mean, Vance at one point said, I simply would not be vice president were it not for Charlie Kirk. He was one who had encouraged him, who had helped him in his Senate bid when he was polling at 3 to 5%. He was the one that was introducing him to donors. And then RFK saying, basically the same as when it came to his position of health secretary, saying I was actually had some reservations about even taking it. I was worried about Medicare and Medicaid. And it was actually Charlie Kirk that had sort of identified Kennedy to the Trump administration, saying Maha's going to make America healthy again is going to be a big thing. There's this untapped pool of voters that we need to be looking at. And so watching that 2-hour show, which I did yesterday, we were blogging it, it was very hard to avoid how significant a figure he was to the administration, particularly behind the scenes, and particularly during the election when he was mobilizing young people in swing states like Arizona, but also during the transition when he was helping the administration fill vital posts. And the other reason that it's very significant and why I am frankly slightly impatient with people in the UK when they say this doesn't matter is because the Trump administration is now openly, and some would say brazenly, pursuing a new agenda, or at least an agenda that they are accelerating around, some would say vengeance, but basically cracking down on what they say are kind of the lunatic, the radical left. We heard from Vance yesterday on that question. He said, yes, I want unity, but there are difficult truths, which is basically that those who are very left-wing are more tolerant of political violence than those that are not. And we are reading already in the Wall Street Journal that we could see in the coming days things like tax-exempt status for left-leaning groups being targeted by anti-corruption laws, the idea that you could label those who are opposed to and have kind of resisted Trump's deportation campaigns, or even targeted conservatives or conservative agendas aggressively as domestic terrorists. So there will almost certainly be really, really significant consequences of this. And it is something that very obviously matters, not just in the US context, but to those in the UK who are interested, particularly around discussions of free speech, hate speech. All of these questions are very, very significant in today's politics.